Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph show. I have some entrepreneurial time wasters I want to talk about today. And this is an article that was on the Ohio Society of CPAs website on November the 13th. And I thought it was really an excellent article. And I want to talk to you about the things they came up with here that are entrepreneurial time wasters. The first one is being unorganized. And this is true. If you come to your business with a plan of how you're going to attack things, you're definitely going to be more successful. If you don't have a plan, then you're going to plan to fail. I've heard that, I think, a couple times. And one of the things that I've done in my practice, and one of the things I picked up when I was doing the Dale Carnegie training, was to really track your time. And I know in our practice we do that. But even from an individual perspective, one of the activities I found to be very useful is to literally keep a record and a schedule of your time. I spent this much time working on this task. I spent this much time working on this task. And then make an assessment at the end of the day and say, okay, well, here's the items that were accomplished. And here's the things I still need to accomplish. This is all part of planning. It's just, being strategic about things. The second part of this is procrastination. This gets to all of us because we all have those tasks that we just don't want to be bothered with, these tedious, but the problem is they're essential tasks. And if you set aside, I'll give you an example of this. One of the things that I really dislike is having to work through emails and all that sort of thing. So I've just come up with a plan now. Every day at a certain time, I plan on going through my emails. With this day and age, you really have to probably do that twice a day because people expect a quick return on an email. So what I've done now is I've set aside 2 times a day to read emails, and I don't read them in between, because this is going to come to the next thing we talk about here in a second. That's multitasking. But if you set aside certain times of the day to handle these tasks that are important but seem to be tedious, I think you're going to be more successful. So the third thing we talk about here is multitasking. And we talked that a minute ago, and I'm guilty of this. I remember when I first started my practice, I had to have 2 monitors on my desk. And that's because I wanted to have my email client, my Outlook client open. And I wanted to have, in my case, my QuickBooks program open and my tax program open and maybe social media open. And, at the time I thought, well, this is great. I'm multitasking. I can see everything that's going on around me. Unfortunately, what they've determined by looking at some studies is that switching your attention from thing to thing is really not effective. In fact, one of the things it says here, but studies have showed that pausing to check social media accounts requires more time to refocus on the task at hand. And I have to say that's probably true. And that's why I said, if you set aside your day and say, look, I'm going to check emails at, 9 a.m. and I'm going to check them again at 4 p.m. And in between, unless something is pressing, you're really not going to check it. That's how you carve out that time. And, if you're working on a project, focus on that project. Don't worry about, I just saw an email pop up. And, you even might want to eliminate the pop-ups and all those sort of things on your computer. And frankly, I switched to a Mac and went back to one screen because what I found is that the multitasking really wasn't doing me any good. The next thing they talk about here is micromanaging employees. And this is a big one. And it was a few years ago, I saw a video and it was called, I believe it's called the monkey management principle. And when I used to run a credit union, I would use this to my benefit. And here's the picture. You picture yourself as a manager and all of your employees are coming to you. And as they walk up to you, they've got a monkey that they're bringing alongside of them. And your employee's goal was frankly to leave that monkey in your office. But as an effective manager, you want to make sure that they take that monkey with them. And what do I mean by that? It seems kind of strange conversation, but what I mean by that is, let's say an employee comes to you and says, hey, Ralph, I got this issue with, I'm trying to think of a good one, machine's not working. Here's a great one. The copier's not working. Now, it'd be really easy for the employee to come in and say, Ralph, we got this copier's not working. And then, they leave that on your desk. But see, that's not being effective in management. So if a person comes to you with that type of thing, you say, okay, well, who's in charge of handling copier repairs? Okay, well, that's Joe. Okay, Joe. Well, let's get Joe in here and we're going to sign that directly to Joe right away. Because if not, what's going to happen is at the end of the day, when each of your employees comes in throughout the day, you're going to be left sitting in your office at the end of the day with all these monkeys. And what I mean by that is the tasks that they didn't handle on their own because you're too interested in micromanaging them. Frankly, if you've got the wrong employees, then you need to let them go. But you've got to have some trust in your employees, making sure that they can get the work done that you expect them to get done. Another huge time waster is unnecessary meetings. And I met with somebody one time and they said, in our business, we don't put chairs in our meeting rooms. And I thought that was kind of a pretty cool idea. I don't know if I'd like it myself, but they said, well, look, we don't put any chairs in the meeting room. So our meetings tend to not last long because people want to get through and get the meeting done and over with. And that's fine. I think there's still, a reason for having a meeting, but again, it goes back to planning. And I think that's where you want to have a clear and concise agenda. And you want to have somebody in charge of the meeting that says, listen, Lewis, we're not going in that direction. The topic at hand is this. Let's focus on this. And it's real easy for things to go downhill. I remember, I worked for a law firm for a while, and we would have, accounting department meetings, and they would always devolve into, a discussion of, well, can you believe this happened, or can you believe that happened? So you've got to have somebody who is going to, and I'll use the word referee the meeting is probably the right word to use, and just says, listen, here's how we're going to handle this meeting. These are the agenda items. Okay, now agenda item number 1 is this. Who's planning the office Christmas party? Okay, let's talk about that. What food are we going to have? But it takes a real strong, person that's not willing to get waylaid with other discussions. So the next thing, and this happens a lot with my newer clients, people who are just starting a business, and that's they spend their time putting out fires. And the problem with putting out fires is that's great. You're resolving the issue at hand, but you're not taking any time to look for strategic thinking and strategic planning for your business. And if you don't plan that strategy for yourself, where is our business in 6 months? Where is it in a year? Where is it at in 18 months? It's not going to get there because you haven't made any plans for that. If you're constantly putting out fires, and trust me, I've known business people who their place burned down because of the fact that they're always putting out fires. You don't have enough time to plan, so it's very important that you set aside some strategic planning, what I call green light thinking time. Another one here is checking social media, and trust me, this has become a huge one. And I'm guilty of this to some extent, but you really have to set that stuff aside. In fact, no one's going to dispute that maintaining an active social media presence is important and critical. That is absolutely true. And I'll talk about that in another broadcast, but that is absolutely true. But it doesn't have to be you that does it. You want to assign somebody in your organization, to do that. Or if your organization is small and you are the one that needs to do it, you need to set aside that time and say, listen, here's when I'm going to do that. I'm going to take, 15 or 20 or 30 minutes every day. And that's going to be my focus. I'm going to do my social media postings and all that sort of thing, which leads us to the biggest entrepreneurial time waster. And I see this constantly, and that is overworking. Listen, you're not helping yourself if you work long hours without a plan and all these things, because what happens is you become sluggish and unfocused. You're much better off in saying, look, I'm going to work these many hours and you're going to be productive during those times. That doesn't mean you're doing any of these time wasters, but it's going to be focused on this is the project, this is what I'm going to accomplish. And then when you're done, you need to go and let it go because you need that time to relax and to reset your mind.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.